If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to Why Write. Hi, welcome to Why Write. I'm Angela Grout, your host, and I'm glad that you were able to tune in today for another episode of Why Write. I am bringing in a guest today from California. Hi. So this is Linda Bergman, and let me tell you about Linda Bergman because I've asked her to come on the show because so many people, when they're writing their stories, don't know what avenue to go down, but they definitely say like, my life is a movie. And she's written a book called So You Think Your Life is a Movie? And you know what? She has written several movies. She is a writer and an educator. She's a film producer and the author of 2 best-selling books, including this one right here. And we're going to talk to her about that. She has written over 24 movies. And she was the head of the production of the hit Billy Jack in 1971, for those of you who remember that. And she's gone on to work for CBS, ABC, NBC, the USA Network, and Lifetime Television, writing for them, writing movie specials. She's known for her expertise in family drama and strong women's stories. And we all have some sort of family drama for sure. Her films have been nominated for an Emmy, an Access Award, the Alpha Award for Excellence in Children's Programming, the prestigious Writers Guild Award, which for all of you authors out there, you know how important that is. She began her career as the assistant to the president of MGM Television. How cool is that? I mean, we're going to talk to her today about so many things. She later became the director of program development for series and movies. She's got lots of talents for sure. And
I'm exhausted.
I know I could go on and on and on. I mean, she's a photographer. She's done scuba diving. I will mention your two greatest accomplishments in your life, if I haven't named enough of them. But she is a leukemia survivor, and she is a mom and a grandma. And let me tell you, I know she's like one proud mom and grandma, and she's got some great kids, and she has a wonderful family. And, that alone fills her heart, but what she has done for the world in general with the stories that she has written that we have seen in after school specials or, in the movies and things, it's very exciting. So I really want to say, a big warm welcome to you, Linda. And thank you so much for, coming on the Zoom because, I'd love to have you in the studio, but since I'm in Massachusetts and you're in California.
Correct.
Works.
Thank you so much, Angela. It's thrilling for me to see you doing so well at this. This is your calling. One of your many callings is to host a show and ask questions.
I'm always curious. I like to know a lot of things.
I actually started my career much earlier than MGM. I think I was 11 when I wrote my first play. And it was put up in my neighborhood. Now, knowing I grew up in Hollywood, everybody in my neighborhood worked in the business. They were painters or construction people or actors or directors, everybody except the helmsman who lived across the street. He was the only one not in the biz. So many, many celebrities came to my house growing up because my dad had the only pool in the hood. So we entertained everybody every weekend. And I got to meet a lot of people that ultimately, Clint Eastwood swam in our pool. That's the name of my memoir. I mean, I was
wait, that's going to be the name of your memoir?
When I met him. Huh?
Clint Eastwood swam in your pool?
Absolutely. That's the title of my memoir. And many other Hollywood stories. But I think I was 6 or 7 when I first met him. And I would end up in an office next to his on the Warner Brothers lot producing a piece, and I would see him and think, this is unbelievable. It's truly how I started writing. I grew up in a very difficult household, and we were not allowed, no kids could talk. or express themselves. So I started writing. And when I got to the 7th grade, my teacher said, you're going to be a writer. And I did. I said, okay, works for me. And I knew a very long time ago that if I watched a movie a day, I had a safe space, and I would jump into these old black and white movies and I would learn from them. I thought that's the way everybody's family worked. That was the only way I survived, actually, was this rabbit hole of old movies. And at MGM, after many years of a career, I ended up in a screening room looking at the same old black and white movies I looked at as a kid to see what would make a modern series. And I wept, and I thought, this is totally full circle. I'm now getting paid to do what I did as a kid.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
It really was. So watching a movie or two a day pretty much gave me the chutzpah to think I could do it.
Yeah, and I'll share with the audience that I took your screenwriting class with you, and you have this really great three act way that you're writing it, but in it we actually did not tear apart, look, dissect and look into a movie. So really watching a specific movie and diagnosing the 3-part structure and diagnosing all of these things helps me as a writer to know like where my story needs to be going. And
every genre except maybe poetry, and in a lot of cases poetry does fit into this beginning, middle, and end. And I'm a structurist, and that's what I bash my students about. You got to have a structure. You have to have a familiar structure if you want to sell something, because the buyers have to recognize it.
Yeah. And one of the things when I took the screenwriting class, talking about like who your main character is, and as a writer, we sometimes think we know who our main character is, but then the heroine sometimes becomes somebody completely different. In April Rain, right. Jessica Briggs is not my main character. It's her story, right. But she's not the main character. And you definitely helped me to find out like, wow, yeah, no, I definitely want the main character to get credit for sure.
And I also told you that to everyone in the class that if you're fleshing out your characters, and one is so interesting that you veer and you start fluffing up that character, that's your main character.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to rethink the piece, which is very difficult.
Yeah, no, I loved being immersed in your environment that you taught, and I was able to take it on Zoom. So therefore the audience that's watching, wherever you are in the world, Linda teaches these great classes that are available in Zoom. I mean, I know you also do several classes in person.
Since the pandemic, when I had to do it,
yeah,
I now can take people from all over rather than just someone who can drive to my house. And I do weekly sessions here too as well.
Yeah, and your classes not only help to develop the script, but you also do script consultations.
Right, and it doesn't have to be a script. I'm working with a novelist. I'm working with an essayist. They still need to have structure.
Yes.
And so the class is open to almost anyone. You don't have to have experience. You just have to go for as a wild ride.
It's a wild ride. And, it's always that serendipitous moment when you meet someone, for me, like, when we met at a random writers group on Zoom, I didn't know who you were, and, we all shared, and then you kind of, we messaged back and forth in the text messages, and, and then I see what you do, and I was like, what do you do? Tell me more. I'm interested, and the universe just kind of, connects some pieces for people who are looking for what to do next with their project. Yeah,
it was a gift. We had, I think being members of IWWG is a gift.
Yeah.
Because we meet such fine writers from all over.
Yes, the IWWG, I've shared this with my audience before, is the International Women's Writers Guild. And Linda and I are both members, and we met, I believe it was at, one of their open mics or open readings that we did during the pandemic. So, if the pandemic, did some terrible things, but they really brought the world together through this.
I agree. And I don't mind working on Zoom. I think that, the people that I'll see on the other side of my screen all really need their own space because
Yes.
their brain and their story, and it's all.
Yeah. Now, when someone comes into one of your classes or hires you to do consulting or being their mentor, can you suggest ways for them, like how they show up to you? What do they show up with? And do they have a written book? Do they have the idea? Do they have an outline? Do they have a script?
All of that.
I knew you were going to say that.
All of that. I mean, I have a woman at a dinner party last night, moved her chair next to me and said, I want to write with you. I'd like to be your ghost writer. And I thought, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Yeah. But I said, wow. I said, well, this is how that would work. You would send me something that you've written. And I would then ask you what you think it is. She kept saying, I don't care. I just want to write with you. It was so funny. And I said, well, I don't really write with anyone. It's a single journey but it's a single journey for me now.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When you were working for all those big networks, NBC, CBS, ABC, writing these 2-hour movies, what kind of guidance did they give you, or did you approach them with the script idea? And like, what was the deadlines like, and how much input do you have to write something?
Okay.
So you can share one of them with us.
The first thing I sold, I didn't even know I was pitching it, was at a brunch in 1980. And I was a mere child, of course. And I happened to sit next to a guy who, I didn't know him, turned out to be infamous. And he was the head of all after-school specials. And I didn't know that. I didn't know a thing, except we started to talk. And he asked me what I did. And I said, well, I hope to grow up and be a writer. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. And I said, he said, well, would you have a story? And I said, well, actually, I do. I'm working on something that when I was a kid, I went to Alateen because I had some issues with my parents drinking. And he went, really? So did I. And I went, really? He goes, yeah. What was your story about? So I briefly said, well, I'm not done with it yet, but it's my going to the meeting and I realizing that as a kid, I can't do anything but take care of myself. And he said, I bought it. And I go, what do you mean? He said, it's an after-school special and you're going to write it and I'll produce it like I produce all of them. And eventually I became his writing partner and a co-producer. So all I did was tell the truth about a really uncomfortable subject. And I happened to tell it to somebody who could make it real.
Wow.
But then again, I live in a factory town.
I was gonna say, you can go down the street and get a cup of coffee and you happen to be running into somebody who does.
But it had to be good and it had to warrant me getting that. But I did get the next job because you have to have a job to get a job.
Yeah. And, how does someone who doesn't live in that environment, pitch their story ideas?
Well, we call it the elevator pitch. I taught you that you have to be able to tell your movie in 2 sentences if you can, big strokes.
Yeah.
And be able to tell it in the time you go from the 1st to the 3rd floor, because that's usually all the ear you're going to get from the guy who can say yes.
Right.
I'd like to go back to your question about the networks.
Oh.
Most of my jobs, my 24 movies for TV, were presented to me and said, okay, would you like to write this? I did write one spec script, which got me noticed in the long form world rather than the after school special, which was, an hour. The network tells you what they want and you meet with everybody and then you're left to your own devices. When I did the Pearl Buck movie, I ended up reading 9 of her books because I knew nothing about her. And so that became a big chunk of time. And then I had to write it and it turned out it was going to be a 2-hour. And I said, I need 4 hours. I got 3. Mm-hmm. So and I was working with Valerie Harper, who wasn't crazy about Pearl Buck. And I turn it in. You turn in your first draft and you get notes. Sometimes you get a gazillion notes. Don't like that character. She's not funny. Give her something to laugh about. Or too many characters, combine them. So I had a lot of they only want to hire so many people. I mean, it's crazy if I told you all the rules that the network has.
Yeah.
And you agree with the director, if one's been assigned yet, to just make some of them or make all of them.
So when you have that first initial meeting with all these people, they're just firing ideas out in the air saying, we want the story to be, set in the woods or, in a rural town. And, you take that information in and then you start writing.
Right. Like Michael Landon.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you did Michael Landon from Little House on the Prairie. And
yeah, I did a movie about his death and what happened to his family and how they survived, barely, that loss. And so then I, practically lived with his ex-wife, and she became a Christian, and we went to, I had to talk to everybody in his life to be able to tell this story, because where's it going to come from?
Yeah, no, I mean, even,
in
my stories, the research you have to immerse yourself in it.
It doesn't come out of your underwear drawer. It comes out of walking the streets and making phone calls, and it was truly a real experience. I mean, I'll never forget it and enjoyed it.
I mean, I'm so impressed not only with your career, but how generous you are with sharing, how to do things, not only why you do them, but, how other people can kind of follow your footsteps. So, I love that. What I'm wondering, I mean, this is, a question I think a lot of writers do think about is, when they are trying to write either for the big screen or for a series, we know that we want to take our audience into consideration. Like, telling a good story for an audience is always priority number one. There's always a little priority on the back burner that we need to make a living. So how do you get paid for projects like that? Like, whether it's something that you've pitched, now they're saying, okay, I'm going to make that into a movie. Is it like out of your own goodwill, you're just writing it and saying, okay, we're gonna make it a movie? Or when, and again, when NBC says, we want you to write a story about this, how are payments received? I'm just interested in that.
Well, I had an agency, creative artist agency, CAA, big time.
The big ones, yeah.
And I only got them because I started selling. I got a lift up from a friend. I mean, a friend, I didn't even know him, but we became, lifelong friends till he passed. Then you get an agent who makes your deal. Now, as a beginner, I got very low pay. Until then you get an option. You say, well, if it gets made, I'll take that low number. But if it gets made, I get a production bonus. And they, 50 grand. Or 100 grand. You ask for what you think, your agent will ask for what you can get. Mm-hmm. Then it goes into paper. And that is and you get paid up front, you get a hunk. You get a hunk when you turn in your first draft. You get a hunk when you turn in your fourth or fifth draft. Now they're only supposed to ask for 2 drafts after the first.
So why 4 or 5?
Most of them ask for many, many more. And on the Jessica Savage movie, I had written so many versions that I finally said, okay, I will do one more version. I say to my agent, but I want $100,000 for it.
Wow.
Well,
yeah. Well, that's what I was wondering. Can you say no?
Like producer and says, I'll give her 10. And I'm like,
wow. Yeah. Cause I mean,
I got 10 more.
That's inspiring and awesome.
Well, it is, but you have to, like what you're doing now. Mm-hmm. Making yourself known. You're growing a platform, which is so important. People will want to watch your movies, or they'll want to watch your guests, read your guest books. You are providing a platform for yourself that will, they even want to know how many email subscribers you have. Like who's going to buy this? Mm-hmm. They're in it for the money.
Yeah.
Period. And so
I am not getting paid to do this. I'm doing this because I love it.
No, but it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Creating a platform that everybody needs.
Yeah. I mean,
I have a platform because I've been around forever.
Yeah.
And it's grown. but at the
I've
beginning,
almost been around forever, but just not in the writing world.
you're a baby.
I'm starting a new career path now, you know. At certain times you change paths. So here I am, you know, saying, okay, you know, I've written 3 books. What can I do with them? How can I learn to even make myself better? And in me trying to learn for myself, I'm saying, if I'm asking these questions, other people want to know too.
Yes.
So why not start a podcast?
I never intended on being a teacher.
Yeah.
I actually got a call from a member of the guild, Len Carey's wife, Heather. And Heather was a big member in the guild. And she called me up and she said, "You're going to teach this fall." I said, "I am? What am I teaching?" She said, "Screenplay." And I went, "We need you." I told them, "You're it. You're the real deal. And you get a few shekels, but you're signed up." Yeah. And I said, "Heather, I don't know how I do what I do." And she said, "Well, figure it out." So I literally had to sit at the blank page, which is terrifying for every writer, and then say, what do I do first? Somebody gives me an idea, or then I have to come up with them. How do you come up with an idea for a screenplay?
Yeah.
Today, they're based on music, songs, they're based on movies, they're based on the headlines, they're based on weather, you know.
What's your favorite part about writing?
The aloneness. Me being just me into my head and heart and seeing what comes out.
I never thought of that, but I really do love that, because especially when I'm doing sometimes even the free write, it's like what comes out even surprises me. And I'm like, wow, that was really cool. So yeah, you're thank you for that, because it's definitely making me say, yeah, me too.
Yeah, a lot of us need that compression, focus.
Well, your book, you know, So You Think Your Life's a Movie is... And
I have the sequel too. I have a second one.
You have 2 books, and you have a 3rd book coming out.
Well, the 3rd book is turning into a memoir of all crazy things.
Well, that's going to be very fun to read, because it sounds like, you know, I know you've had a very exciting life. I mean, you got Clint Eastwood in the pool, and, you know, hundreds of celebrities coming in and out of your house, and meeting, you know, randomly meeting someone who says, "Hey, what's your idea for a story?" And then boom, next thing you know, you're, you know, writing for, you know, 10, 22 years. So yeah,
I'm really happy to be where I am now, and that's helping others. And I am doing my own writing, which is intensive. And I've never written a true story before. I mean, it's based on true stories, but this is really true. Everything.
Yeah, I keep saying I want to do something like that too, but then, you know, you run into, you know, making sure that your truth doesn't harm someone else as you're sharing your own truth.
Right. You know, and that's like the big question when you go, how am I going to say this?
Yeah,
my kids are going to read this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely, you know, something that we have to take into consideration. And I think why a lot of writers, you know, choose to either write their memoir or choose to write fictional stories, because in a fictional story, you can use your own personal experience, but yet, you know, changing the names to protect the innocent or guilty or whatever that is.
Everything you write's 75% you.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's coming through this lens.
Yeah, and it's getting this lens to be able to be on paper so someone else can see through that lens. And that's what movie making is about.
It's a thing. It's not a thought anymore. It's a thing.
Yeah. So can you tell, let's share with the audience how they can get in touch with you. We'll put the links below in the podcast where everyone's subscribing to yWrite, and, you know, they can get in contact with you to either, you know, sign up to take one of your classes, learn more about you and your works. And, you know, I'll put the link to your books because I know they're available on Amazon. So tell us about where to get everything.
Well, when I first wrote them, I had them in every bookstore. Now Amazon is fine because that's the most popular, unless it happens to be on a bookshelf, you know, in your area. I like to be directly contacted via my email because I don't always check my website, but I do get messages from my website. which
Then
is
you
kind
can
of,
mail them and sign them too.
that's what
And
I
you
would
can see,
love. Yeah,
I have a nice
sure.
little, autographed book here. So yeah, if they contact you directly, they can buy it from you.
And you can always come to the Guild every year. Somewhere in the country, there's this incredible gathering of women writers. And
Yes, we're going to be meeting up. Usually it's in July every year. So, right now as we're taping, it's July. So it'll be happening soon for us, and we'll
yeah,
be
very soon in Philly.
in
And
Philadelphia
there's
for
still
this year.
space.
Yes.
There's still space.
All right. So what is your website that they can go to, or your email?
My email is MC Bergman, Mick Bergman at mac.com.
Okay, and we're going to put
MAC.com.
those links in there. And I could have 10 more shows with you because there's so many questions that I want to ask. But I want to thank you for coming.
The website is Write with Linda, I think.
Is it so you think,
or So You Think Your Life's a Movie? They all go to my website.
Yeah. So You Think Your Life's a Movie is, I know, the one that I went to, which shows a lot of your credits, and and I think there's a link there for your book too.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have a great website page for sure. And and I know that you do respond to your emails pretty rapidly, so that's really nice.
Yeah, every day.
Yeah. Some people put them off, but you don't, and that's what shows what a quick writer you are. Writer and reviser and editor. And I mean, the class I took with you, I forget how long it was, but I don't know if we did the
We were
two-day intensive
for 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks, and then I think we had like a couple intensives, and
Yeah.
doing that, like having to do those rewrites, sometimes I was like, why do I gotta rewrite this again? But
Well, that's the problem with when you come with a book like you did, you already have your story in your head.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to alter it is so difficult because you've gotten used to what you wrote. That to you is your truth. And when somebody says, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm. No, it's so true, because you're right. We know what we have set in our head, but when we verbally say it out loud or someone's reading it, the clarity needs to be there for, the audience, and, having someone else read it and help guide through it is.
Yeah. Your first judge in selling something is a reader.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to read it to pass it along.
Yep. Got to get through the gatekeepers. The gatekeeper likes it, the door opens.
Yeah. I was the gatekeeper for so many years. That's so fun.
I get some emails where they ask me if I want to read scripts and be like a gatekeeper. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that, but it sounds like interesting.
Yeah, you have to love it.
Yeah, I love writing. So right now I'm writing, and I love talking to you and to people like you about writing. And
thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much. Again, I'll put the links down below. On the podcastings, and so in the local channel networks, we'll have it right up on the screen. So I want to thank my audience in Studio 954 for letting me have this show, because it's because of you that I can do this every week and enjoy what I'm doing as far as, what I personally am doing and what my guests are doing, and we can share that with you. So whether you're looking for great books to read or learning how to write, this show is for you. So thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Now, Linda, this is the part of the program at the end where, since I do have an audience who wants to write, I give them a prompt. So when the show is over, I say, pick up your pen, pick up a piece of paper. I don't care what kind of piece of paper. It can be a napkin. It can be a nice, beautiful notebook. It can be, whatever you want, and set a timer for whether it's 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and just start writing. So today's prompt, and because we're talking about you think your life is a movie, why don't you think about, is your life a movie? And pick out a scene of your life and start writing that scene of your life, because your life probably is a movie. We all have movies within us. So thank you so much for joining me today, Linda. Thank you. Thank you. And there'll be more information to everyone that I'm hosting a conference in November. And there'll be more information on the yWrite conference, both right here on the podcast and on my website at angelamgrout.com. Thank you. And I will see you next time.